Hello, ABC Jesus Loves Me family. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me in this live broadcast that we're doing about how to teach children how to use scissors. If you are new to ABC Jesus Loves Me, my name is Heidi, and I'm the creator and writer. And it's just an honor and a privilege to be able to come alongside you as you work with the kids in your life. As I stated, we're going to be talking about how to use scissors. And one of the things that I want to encourage you to do when you are using the ABC Jesus Loves Me curriculum is not to skip the activities in the 1 and the 2 year curriculum, like the fine and the gross motors, because they are preparing a child to be able to use scissors well. Let's start with the developmental process of using scissors. First of all, it requires fine motor skill to be able to move all the little muscles in those little tiny cute hands. Second of all, it requires hand-eye coordination for the child to be able to move their hand based upon what their eyes are seeing on the paper. And then it also requires bilateral coordination. And what this means is using both sides of the body at the same time. So the child is having to use this side of the body, if they're right-handed, they're having to use their right side of their body for the open and closing of the scissors, while the left hand requires to be able to move whatever they are cutting. So you can see there is a lot of development that is required for a child to be able to use scissors. Now, the scissor process includes 2 levels. First of all, let me grab a pair of scissors. The open and close process, the open and close process, and we're going to talk about that a lot. And then cutting on the line. So there's 2 requirements for a child to be able to do this successfully. They have to be able to open the scissors and close them, and then they have to be able to follow cutting on the line. And again, that goes all back to that development that I was talking about. For my kiddos, the hardest part was getting that open and close when they needed it. They would make the first cut, and then they would try to just kind of push through instead of open the scissors back up. And there are a few activities that you can do to help your child strengthen these muscles that are required to open and close. One of them is to use a spray bottle. And this is an activity that is in the 1 year curriculum. For the child, they draw, or the adult draws a shape onto a coffee filter, and then the child sprays and watches the ink from the washable marker run. And the reason why that activity is important is because when a child uses a spray bottle, they have to squeeze, release, squeeze, release, which is that exact same movement that you have with the scissors. Another great idea is for them to play with clothespins, because that clothespin activity is they have to squeeze to open the clothespin and then release to close the clothespin. So let a child put clothespin onto a piece of paper or onto a clothesline if you have one, or onto a paper plate. Allow them to do that pinching process, which will then help them with using scissors. Another one is tongs, salad tongs. So allow them, maybe in bath time, put in some toys and give them a pair of salad tongs and allow them to open and close those salad tongs, because again, it's that same process of understanding when to open and when to close. I want to show you a few scissors options because this is something that I get a lot of questions about. So first of all, I want to show you, these are PlayDoh scissors. They are made specifically to cut Play-Doh. They're not sharp, they won't cut paper, they won't cut hair, they won't cut anything. They're just a blunt edge. But they're great for Play-Doh, and that is one of the first activities we do in the ABC Jesus Loves Me curriculum to start a child knowing how to cut. So you can get these on Amazon, and I will post a link after this video is done to all of these items that I'm suggesting that you use. But these are Play-Doh scissors. Some of the scissors are specialty scissors that you can buy. And these scissors, you notice when I clip down on them, they automatically push back open. There is nothing that I'm doing to open them. You just push to close and they immediately open. These are great if you would have a child with maybe special needs or somebody who is really struggling with fine motor skills. But if not, I would encourage you to go straight to Fiskars Scissors. These scissors are not expensive at all, and in all my research, everybody continues to suggest them. What people love about them, first of all, is the blunt end. You gotta when you're giving kids scissors, we wanna keep them safe. So the blunt end is important for preschoolers, but they are sharp enough to be able to cut. And that's so important. When you have scissors, when you're looking at purchasing scissors, some of them are so blunt that what happens is the paper just folds when you try to use it. So what I would encourage you to do is when you think you have some scissors, try using them yourself. Are you able to cut easily? Let me give you an example. Here's a red pair and here's a blue pair. They're the same scissors, the Fiskars Scissors. This set is incredibly hard for me to open and close. But if you look real closely, you'll see there's some glue and junk on it. This set is very simple for me to open and close. And so this is the pair that I would want the child to use. I want to show you an example of these scissors. These would not be good scissors for a preschooler, and let me show you why. When I put my 2 fingers in these scissors, they become very wobbly. They're hard to manage. Also, there's a lot of weight to them, where these scissors here are very light. There's a huge difference. So make sure the scissors are light, make sure that they open and close very easily, and that they have a blunt end for safety reasons. And then last but not least, that when you cut, they will actually cut the paper and not just fold the paper in between the blades. Once you have decided which scissors you are going to use and the child has the fine motor skill ready to be able to open and close scissors, you're going to start slowly. And what I encourage you to do is start with something like Play-Doh or straws and drinking straws. And those are the 2 items that we begin with in the 2-year curriculum. And yes, 2.5-year-olds can use scissors if they have the fine motor and are trained how to use it. So let me show you about the Play-Doh first. Using Play-Doh scissors, and again, I said those were not sharp at all. There's no sharpness to them. You want to take and just make a snake out of the Play-Doh. One of the things that I would do though, you see how this Play-Doh is really long? And so when I try to hold it, it just folds over. Don't make it too long. Cut it in half and just give enough for the child to hold. And then with the scissors, all they're going to do is just close and snip that off. And it will make a mess, but that's okay. Do it on a tablecloth so you can pick it up. And you're just gonna snip that, and the child's just gonna practice. And some kids, once they get this for the first time, they will do it for hours because they enjoy cutting something and it's really fun. But you'll notice in using Play-Doh, you don't have to continue that open-close process. It's just a close and then you're done. And then it's a close and then you're done. Again, this is part of the 2-year curriculum, so this isn't something that you have to remember. It's there for you. The next process then, once the child is able to do that, then they're ready to cut paper. Now, I brought 3 different thicknesses of paper because I wanted to let you see the difference. Here is construction paper, and you can see when I hold it, it stays pretty flat. It's not too hard. Here's a regular piece of typing paper, and it's a little bit thinner than construction paper. And then here's some really loose paper. Do you see how it continues to fold on me? That makes it very, very difficult for a child to use because it does fold. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this paper in half because you can see that it is much, much easier for the child to handle when it's cut in half versus when they have an entire sheet of paper. So if you have a child who is going to be cutting out shapes in the 4-year curriculum, cut them in half so it's less to manage, because there's usually 2 shapes per page. Cut them in half so it's less to manage. So to start out with the paper, cut narrow strips about 1 inch in width. And the child holds the paper with their non-dominant hand, is going to cut with their dominant hand. One of the things to remember is that when they're holding the paper, make sure they hold it, not just lay it on the table. You don't want them to lay the paper on the table and try to cut. Let me show you what I mean by that. I brought a pan here to show, but you don't want the paper, you don't want the kid trying to do something like this in their cutting. Make sure they actually hold the paper to assist them. Second thing, make sure that the elbow is tucked in. Anytime this elbow gets up, that means the child is not doing what they're supposed to do. I've seen on some OT websites that they will actually tell you to put a piece of paper under the child's arm while they cut. So they have to hold that paper. Now, I could see where some kiddos, when they're first learning, that could be incredibly frustrating. So use that idea with wisdom and make sure that it's the right one for your child. So, elbow is against the body, against the ribs. And then the second thing is, or I guess this is the third thing, isn't it? Make sure the thumb is faced upward. You can draw on their fingernails a little smiley face, put a sticker. If you have a little girl, paint her fingernails with fingernail polish, because you want them to always see those thumbs. That's so important. Make sure they always see those thumbs. So, we're holding the paper with our non-dominant hand. Our elbow is tucked in next to our ribs. Our thumbs are always upward. Next, make sure the scissors are always facing away from you. If the scissors are parallel with your body, then we're not doing what we're supposed to do. And notice the elbow just popped out. You can use animals to help the children understand the open and close concept. Animals like alligators, sharks, whatever animal the child loves. So holding the paper, then they're going to open, close, or open mouth, eat paper, as an alligator would. And I like the 1-inch papers because it makes it super easy for the child compared to if they try to cut long strips. So they would cut and close. We're going to start again, cut and close. Open and close is, like I said, very, very hard. And so when my children were first starting to learn to use scissors, I would use those words, open, close, open, close. And then I would go behind them and do hand over hand. So I would put my hand on top of their hand and help them open, close, open, close. And we did it very, very slowly to help them understand. Do you see also why I put so much emphasis on obedience? If you have a child who will not allow you, who does not have an open heart to allow you to sit behind them and hold their hand and help them, the child will not be successful. And 2 things will happen. Either you will give up and the child will never be trained, or the child's going to continue and learn some bad habits. And bad habits are so hard to fix when it comes to cutting. So I cannot encourage you enough to start with the end in mind and help the child be successful. Okay, so let's do a review. We've got holding the paper with our non-dominant hand. Our elbow is tucked into the ribs. Thumbs are upward, both of them. And the scissors are always facing away from our body. And our shark is going to eat the paper, open, close, open, close. All right, so that is the first step in cutting paper. Then the next step will be where the child has straight lines. And I brought a marker so I could draw some lines. I don't know how straight they'll be, but I brought a marker so that you can see what this process will look like. Straight lines on a piece of construction paper, again, about 1 inch, 1.5 inches apart. And these are not straight, but you can imagine they are, right? All right, so the child is going to begin cutting. You want them to cut the furthest from their hand. So they will start with this piece. Don't have them start right next to their hand. Always start away from the where their holding hand is. Okay, so when they cut, again, we're going open, close, shift, open, close, shift up, open, close. So we're going through that continued process that they did before, but now that they did like with the Play-Doh and with the straws, but now we're in a continuing process of moving forward. Once the child is able to do the straight lines, then we go to circles or spirals. So on a piece of paper here, let me draw a circle. Here's a circle on a regular sheet of paper. Remember, you're going to want to start out with stiffer paper first and then branch out from there. One thing that I saw was even the suggestion of using foam paper because it's very stiff. I've never tried that, but it's something if you needed to, you may want to. All right, so we're ready to cut our circle. I'm going to cut in a smooth direction, and I'm going to cut it counterclockwise. So I'm going to cut, open. Now what happens is pretty soon the child's going to have to turn the paper. If you see their elbow rise, it means they need to adjust the paper in their hand. So let me show you. Hopefully you can see that. Yes, you can. Great. So right here, see how my elbow's starting to come out as I circle? Push the elbow, well, don't push the elbow down, but gently help the elbow go down and help the child move the paper in their hands. So we're going to cut some more, and that bilateral coordination and hand-eye coordination that we were talking about at the beginning, that's where that movement happens, where this non-dominant hand has to know when to move the paper. So we continue cutting, and the non-dominant hand continues to move around as we cut. And again, if that elbow comes up, that means the paper needs to be moved. And train the child to understand elbow movement means paper needs to move. I do want to say that I am not an occupational therapist. I do not have a degree in this whatsoever, other than my education degree. So if you do have detailed questions about your child, I do encourage you to talk to your pediatrician or get an occupational therapy eval to be able to help your kiddos and make sure there isn't something else that is needed. But I can share what we've learned in occupational therapy while Bubs was in there, and then also share what I've learned just being a mom, teaching my 4 kiddos how to cut.